So I'm Aaron Kaufman, owner of ArcLight Fab, and you're in ArcLight Fab here in Grand Prairie, Texas.
Everyone thinks they know Aaron Kaufman, the calm, bearded genius from Fast and Loud, the guy who could turn a pile of scrap into a work of art. But what if I told you, most of what you saw wasn't even close to the full story? The cameras showed the builds, the laughs, and the victories, but never the rules he quietly refused to follow, the ideas that got shut down, or the moments that made him question everything. Off-screen, Aaron was facing pressures no one talked about, deadlines that made no sense, creative fights that could end a career, and a system that turned passion into performance. So why did a man who had everything, fame, fans, and freedom, suddenly walk away at his peak? What did he see behind those garage doors that made him say, enough? Stay till the end, because what the camera didn't show you might just change the way you see Aaron Kaufman forever. You might have seen Aaron Kaufman roar out of the garage, welding, tubing, and fabricating flawless builds for the cameras. What few people know is how deeply his love of metal and speed traces back to his childhood on a farm near Crowley, Texas. He was born on the 26th of January 1982 and grew up helping his dad, a self-described car guy, on old projects and stock cars. Long before the limelight, Aaron was the kid who preferred wrenches to games. At age 16, he bought his first vehicle, a Jeep Cherokee, just to take it apart and put it back together again. That hands-on obsession laid the foundation for a career where every bolt matters. He didn't set out to be a TV star. In fact, his early dream was to become a park ranger, until he realized that carving engines and custom frames was where his heart really was. Before joining Gas Monkey Garage, Aaron built his reputation quietly, working long nights, learning all aspects of fabrication, from sourcing parts in junkyards to coaxing rare engines to life. Few viewers of his later shows know about those years of grunt work and learning curves when mistakes were frequent and no cameras rolled. Then, when Gas Monkey offered him a bigger platform, Aaron already carried into the garage a skill set honed by sweat, dust, and failure. This early period matters because it planted two conflicting forces inside him. One, the craftsman who demands perfection, and two, the television star machine that would come to demand output, speed, and drama over craft. And that tension would shape every build, every decision, and every step he took after the cameras started rolling. When Aaron Kaufman stepped into Gas Monkey Garage on the hit show Fast and Loud, the screen captured his wild builds, his signature beard, and the triumphs of metal and horsepower. But few viewers knew the full picture behind the scenes. Almost immediately, Aaron's deep fabrication background made him indispensable. He wasn't just the TV guy by the time he was in front of cameras, he had years of hands-on experience that most stars didn't. What isn't shown often is the fact that he spent countless nights sourcing rare engines, re-welding frames after take one, and debugging parts long after the crew had gone home. What you saw in 45-minute episodes came after 100-hour shop weeks. The spotlight grew quickly. At Gas Monkey, Aaron became the face of the builds, the guy who could turn a rusty donor car into a showpiece in TV time. But that public visibility also brought hidden pressure. The quicker the cameras rolled, the tighter the deadlines became, and the more the show needed spectacle over subtle craftsmanship. In one interview, Aaron admitted that a project reached a crossroads when his build ambitions outgrew the show's format and budget. Then came the paradox. With fame came constraints. He had become a TV star, yet he was a builder who didn't want to be constrained. The demands of the network, the need for episodes, and the edits required him to compromise on what he knew he could do. What most people didn't know was how that tension built up behind the scenes, quietly reshaping his relationship with his work and the spotlight. And the next chapter, that tension would soon force a decision, one that looked surprising on screen but was years in the making. When you watched Aaron Kaufman on Gas Monkey Garage, you saw the final cuts. Gleaming paint, roaring engines, triumphant fist pumps. What you didn't see, the clock ticking, the budget shrinking, and the creative vision quietly grinding against the show's format. Behind the scenes, Aaron was operating under 45-minute episode constraints, while the real build timelines were weeks or even months longer. As he explained in an interview, one project he called a tipping point. I wanted to build cars that were that big or bigger, and then TV needed cars that were much smaller than that. He was frustrated that his ambition outpaced what the production schedule allowed. There were nights when Aaron's shop work stretched into the early hours, not for the camera, but because his builds required precision that scratched past the time slots allotted for filming. In 2018, he admitted he worked sometimes 110 hours per week during the first season of the show. These aren't the heroic moments you saw, they're the unseen toll when craftsmanship meets television. The constraints also affected what made it to air. Aaron claimed many of his favorite ideas, radical fabrication, unconventional engineering, were often shelved because they didn't fit the show's flip and sell model. That mismatch between the builder's ambition and the TV formula built resentment. Aaron wasn't just a star mechanic, he was a craftsman trapped in an entertainment machine. The builds looked fast and effortless on screen, but off-camera they were battles against time, budget, and compromise. And that fight changed what he wanted out of his work. How that growing frustration led him to the decision that surprised everyone, walking away from what he helped build. What few viewers realized was the real fracture forming behind the scenes the moment Aaron Kaufman quietly checked the dashboard and saw he was driving in the wrong lane. Aaron has openly admitted the turning point came with a build that never aired. The Pantara build, you don't see on the show, that was the bottom end of the type of cars I want to build. He explained that he wanted to build cars that were that big or bigger, but the TV format and budget forced cars that were much smaller than that. Beyond the mismatch in ambition, Aaron cited some growing personal issues and professional differences of opinion with the shop's direction. His relationship with the boss, Richard Rawlings, shifted from partnership to something more transactional. "It's not that we have an unfriendly rapport, we just don't have much of one at all these days," Aaron said in one interview. On the business side, the formula that made their show a hit also became a cage. A demanding schedule, quick turnaround builds for TV, and the need to prioritize what looks good on camera over what he wanted to build crushed the creative side of his trade. In essence, Aaron left because the job core building exceptional, challenging machines was being compromised. The craft he valued most was being traded for ratings and deadlines. That mismatch wasn't obvious to viewers, but it changed everything for him. Next, we'll dive into how Aaron reinvented himself after the split, the path he chose when the spotlight turned off. After his high-profile exit from Gas Monkey Garage, most people assumed Aaron Kaufman would fade quietly into the background. What they didn't know is how strategic and deliberate his next move was. In 2017, Aaron founded his own enterprise, ArcLight Fabrication, located in Texas, signaling a shift from high-volume TV builds to boutique, high-precision projects. Instead of builds that had to be TV-friendly, he focused on what he earlier said he wanted: cars that were that big or bigger, rather than much smaller ones designed for tight episodes. One less publicized aspect is his parts business. ArcLight isn't just about finishing builds. Aaron began manufacturing aftermarket components primarily for Ford F-100 trucks, targeting a niche he felt underserved. That move shows he wasn't just changing where he worked, but what he worked on, shifting from entertainer to craftsman entrepreneur. Another layer most viewers missed: the way this reinvention gave him freedom to pick projects not bound by network schedules, to experiment off-camera, and to define success on his terms. It wasn't simply leaving a show, it was recalibrating his entire career around what he cared about most: the craft. This matters because it reframes Aaron's story. He didn't just walk away from something, he walked towards something more aligned with his vision. The next piece of his story will reveal how he took that vision into even more extreme territory. After leaving Gas Monkey, most people thought Aaron Kaufman had stepped away from the adrenaline, but what they didn't see was him stepping straight into one of the most dangerous, demanding arenas in motorsport, the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb. This wasn't a made-for-TV build. It was a real race: 12 miles, 156 corners, and a climb from 9,000 to over 14,000 feet. The air gets thin, the brakes fade, and a single mistake can send you over the edge. And Aaron wanted to take it on in a 1963 Ford Falcon built from the ground up in his own shop. Most fans only saw short clips of that Falcon tearing up the mountain, but they didn't see the months of engineering behind it. Aaron and his team reimagined the car completely: a small block Ford V8 pushing nearly 500 horsepower, custom suspension geometry, a Richmond 4-speed, and a Mark Williams 9-inch rear end. Every piece was designed to survive altitude and speed that television cameras couldn't capture, but the real story was in the failures. Parts cracked, setups went wrong, oxygen levels wreaked havoc on tuning, and there were nights when the car seemed impossible to finish. That project wasn't about fame, it was about proving something. That his identity wasn't built on editing or applause. It was built on precision, endurance, and risk. For Aaron, Pikes Peak wasn't a comeback. It was a statement, a message to everyone who thought he'd left the game. He hadn't left, he'd just taken it somewhere the cameras couldn't follow. But as bold as this climb was, it came with consequences. No one saw the unseen grind, the missed goals, and the toll of chasing perfection without a spotlight. Even after leaving the high-pressure world of TV builds, Aaron Kaufman didn't sidestep failure, he just shifted the setting. What most viewers never saw were the projects that stalled, the parts that cracked under pressure, and the business realities of running a shop around his own vision rather than a show's schedule. He designed parts, engineered trucks, and took on extreme builds. But if the rubber didn't meet the road, it still counted as effort, not broadcast glory. Sleep in the shop, and builds shooting way past tune-up hours. That toll didn't vanish just because the cameras left the muscle memory, and fatigue from those years became an invisible drag on his new path. On the business side, launching his own components, business and boutique builds meant stepping into logistics, manufacturing, client demands, and deadlines, all things you don't see when you're just watching a reveal. He has said he's had to see mistakes as they are happening because of so many wrong roads I've been down. In other words, his expertise wasn't born perfect, forged through failure after failure. The vision he adopted after leaving TV wasn't just about freedom and creativity. It was also about facing the hidden cost of craftsmanship, the parts that failed, the timelines missed, the business losses absorbed, and the stress that's invisible on screen. Having seen how setbacks shaped him, let's now look at how he balanced life off camera, the personal shifts you didn't see in the build montages. No one watching knows exactly what Aaron Kaufman will build next, and that's where the real intrigue lies. After stepping away from the rhythm of weekly TV builds, Aaron isn't simply playing it safe. He's quietly setting up projects that could redefine how car culture works behind the scenes. For instance, he became a brand ambassador for MagnaFlow, aligning himself with aftermarket performance parts and signaling a shift from star builder to industry influencer. But there's a deeper move. Aaron has publicly talked about building parts, full kit systems for Ford F-Truck enthusiasts, and leveraging his post-TV freedom to explore more radical ideas without the clock of a network schedule. What most viewers didn't know, he's not racing to recapture fame, he's quietly preparing for a new game. And because much of this is off camera, we don't see the failures, pivots, or experiments that will determine whether his next decade is about legacy or just another build. The biggest twist might not be what he builds, but how he builds it outside the glare of lights and mounting expectations. So if you respect builders who do it for the love, not the likes, like this video, share it with someone who still believes in real craftsmanship, and subscribe for more untold stories from the world of cars, legends, and raw truth. And drop a comment below, what do you think the cameras never showed us about Aaron Kaufman?